So the railroad in Franklin. I got some sources of information. The Franklin Register was the town's first newspaper. The Franklin Sentinel was the weekly newspaper that we used to have. A lot of you probably remember that. And then Eamon McCarthy Earls wrote a book from Franklin, from Puritan Precinct to 20th Century Edge City. I've got a lot of good information from that book. It's a great book. They used to sell them downstairs, but I know you can get copies at the Historical Museum too. Great book. Stanley Chilson had a collection of pictures and films. You'll see some of that in here. Sanborn Fire Insurance Maps was a wealth of information too. A lot of good information there. And then personal pictures and postcards, people willing to share their pictures with me, and they gave me permission to use them, and it's great. So, I want to give a word of thanks to the Historical Museum, the staff there. They assisted me too. That's a good thing. It's a great place to go if you haven't been. And I would also mention the Franklin Observer. I don't know if many of you are aware of this. It's an online publication. Every morning at 7 o'clock sharp, I get an email from them. And a lot of good information in there. In fact, there's a column called Hometown History. And it's pretty informative. I've learned quite a bit. There was a house over on the corner of High Street and Union Street. There was a large house. And sometime in the 20s, they cut the house in half, and they moved half of the house over onto Union Street. And you can see the house has got the same designs in it. So I thought, wow, I never knew that. So the column is called The House Divided. So it was.
Did they get divorced or something?
I don't know. I'm not going there. So let's talk about the three railroad lines that went through Franklin. The New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad. We refer to it as the New Haven Railroad. The Rhode Island, and by the way, if I mess up, you tell me, okay? If I mess up on anything, you keep me honest, okay? Okay. The Rhode Island and Massachusetts Railroad, and the Milford Branch line of the New Haven Railroad. I got a hold of this map recently, and it's around 1930 when this map came out. And I've highlighted the three lines. The red line is the New Haven line, went to Blackstone from Boston. The blue line is the Providence line. You know, for some time I never even knew about that line, but we're going to talk about it. And went up by Washington Street, went through Al's backyard. And then the green one is the one that goes to Milford, and that's the one that goes through Forge Park train station. So the New Haven, well, let's take them one at a time. So we'll talk about the New Haven line first. The first line that passed through Franklin was called the Norfolk County Railroad. And it was chartered on April 24th, 1847. Okay? Now the first segment of it went from Dedham to Walpole in April of 1849, and then a month later, the rest of it was built all the way up to Blackstone. Went through Franklin all the way to Blackstone. And by going to Blackstone, it made a connection with the Providence and Worcester line. So, and by the way, a lot of the workers on the railroad were Irish immigrants, and a lot of them, they were the first Roman Catholics that came to Franklin, and they're the ones that helped to form St. Mary's Church and parish. Now, when the line first went through to Blackstone, it crossed over Spring Street. And the Wadsworth family took advantage of this, because in 1857 they created a little village there called Wadsworth. And what they did is they had a little store there, a little general store, a little train station, and in the village they also had a school there, and they made a small fortune doing that. So in 1854, the Norfolk County Railroad merged with the Boston and New York Central Railroad. And in 1863, it was acquired by the Boston, Hartford, and Erie Railroad. And then that folded in the disastrous 1873 Wall Street panic. Back in those days, they called it a panic, but it was really a recession today. And then it was reorganized as the New York and New England Railroad. Now this train, they called this train the ghost train or the white train because the cars were all painted in white. In 1884, this train started making runs between Boston and New York In 6 hours, they could make it. In 1884, imagine 6 hours? Whew, wow. And it ran until 1895. So, but 6 hours, whew. And then in 1895, they changed the name of the railroad to the New England Railroad. But 3 years later, the company was taken over by the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad, or the New Haven. And it would eventually be called the Midland Division. Now, during the 1900s, the Midland Division became a very important route for dairy farmers. And one dairy farm that really took advantage of this was the Elm Farm Dairy. It was up on West Central Street, and it was owned by the Ray family, Joseph Gordon Ray. And the reason this train was so important is the milk dealers and the dairy farmers had to get their milk to Boston because they had they sold a lot of it in Boston. So today, that farm was bought out by a couple of brothers named Maxwell and Israel Gorelick. It's Gorelick Farms. So I got some Google Earth pictures. I love Google Earth. You just see everything, it's great. So what I did is I highlighted in red where the train went. So it started at the train depot down in Depot Street and went through Nason's Crossing, which is Union Street. That was called Nason's Crossing. And it continued on, went under 495, although 495 wasn't there back then. And then it passed over Grove Street, kind of did a little bit of a right turn and took a left turn, went through Wadsworth, Spring Street, and across under Prospect Street, where there's a nice tunnel today. And it continued on, crossed over 126 in Bellingham, and went on to Blackstone. Now here's one of those Sanford, I'm sorry, go ahead, yeah?
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay, anytime questions, please.
When these railroad lines were built,
Yeah.
was it necessary to take land by eminent domain or whatever, or was this pretty much undeveloped?
Right, well the question is, was the land taken over by eminent domain? I guess so. I mean, back in the 1840s and 1850s, I guess they probably did. Maybe the landowner said, well, that's a good thing. That's a good question.
Do you know if there were houses that had to be removed and stuff? Or
Well,
on the streets?
I'm sure there were some, yeah.
I thought the government
Yeah.
was the only one that could do eminent domain.
I'm sorry,
I
Mike?
thought government was the only one that could do eminent domain.
That's a good point,
I know
yeah.
some of the railroads used to go to where property lines were and ask,
Right. Okay.
this owner and that owner, they
Okay.
split like where property line was.
Ah.
That's a lot of them did. Like the Grafton up the railroad when I worked there. They had some
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why it
right,
turns so much.
right. Okay, well, that's good. Good information, yeah. So here it is, here's the train entering Blackstone right here. And as you can see, there's two railroad lines here. The railroad line on the bottom is the Providence and Worcester line. And the other one where the arrow is, that's the train coming into Blackstone. That's the New Haven line coming from Franklin. There's the train station that was there. And that was built in 1847. Remember we were talking about the trains, the line went to Blackstone in 1847, so that was the first depot that was there. They were a stop on the Providence-Worcester line until 1960, and then Boston commuter rail service ended in 1966 in that spot. So, yeah. The tracks on this side are the Providence and Worcester line. The tracks on the other side are the New Haven line. Now, what happened in 1955, there was a big hurricane, and on the other side of Blackstone, the tracks get all wiped out. I mean, look at the damage. So at that point, we could no longer go to Putnam, Connecticut. This is kind of near where Putnam was. So the trains could only go to Blackstone and stop there. And by the way, at that time, trains were getting competition from cars. People wanted to drive. Gas was cheap. Semi-trailers were used to move stuff. So, people said the railroad was a less attractive option at that time. And then in 1966, the MBTA was formed, and they subsidized service from Boston to Norfolk. Franklin decided they'll subsidize up to Franklin, but Blackstone said, no, we're not subsidizing. So at that point, 1966, train service stopped going to Blackstone. Yeah, 1966.
Complain about the trains running at Union Street.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
Parked them there.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I know it. In 1968, the New Haven line went out of business, and its locomotives and rail cars were all sold to the Pennsylvania Central Railroad, or Penn Central. But that same year, the Blackstone River Bridge collapsed. And that's when they said, okay, we're just going to abandon the Midland Line. And today, most of that line is now the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail. And there's one of the Penn Central engines. They continued to run trains from Boston to Franklin through the early 70s. But, you know, the trains weren't running on schedule. I was talking to my brother recently. He said the trains were cold, they're smelly. You could smoke on them at the time, and it was awful.
Cold in the winter.
And cold in the, no air conditioning. They were freezing in the winter. And by 1976, Penn Central went out of business, and then the federal government stepped in and formed a new company called Consolidated Rail, or Conrail. Probably remember Conrail. But it's too little, too late. By 1984, the dairy and farmer route was abandoned and was given over to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Management. And today, this is down on Grove Street. You can walk the trail. It's a great trail, by the way. It's really nice. This is the abandoned line, and there it is.
We're just finishing from Center Street to 126 now, too.
Oh, they did they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you can go down there. I don't know if it's officially open or not.
Ah.
It's
Oh, good.
all-
Yeah,
yeah.
because my wife and I, we walked from Lake Street. It's beautiful, too. It's nice and smooth. Lake Street to, what's the next one, Central?
Center.
Okay, Center Street, right.
Street down.
So you're saying from Center Street on?
You can go there, yeah.
Oh, okay, because we went down there, you could see it was still kind of,
Goes to 126. And
Yeah.
They also got one way that goes out to where those schools are on. That's at Hopkins Street, I think, in Bellingham.
okay.
You can go out in and out there.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't think they'll ever make it into Blackstone, though.
Probably not, yeah.
I think it's too built up.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's nice, and
Yeah.
I always wanted to ride my bike from Franklin down there. Just
Yeah, right.
Riding on the train with my father going down there.
That's right, yeah. And then the Franklin and Bellingham Rail Trail Committee is a volunteer group, and they're dedicated to the development, maintenance, and financial support of the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail. And that's their website if you're interested, franklinbellinghamrailtrail.org. Now, the Rhode Island and Massachusetts Railroad. This is the one that went to Valley Falls, Rhode Island. That's part of Cumberland, Rhode Island. Now, down on Cottage Street was where this freight house and this interlocking tower was. Down on Cottage Street is where they had this junction. It was called Franklin Junction, and that's where just on this side of Union Street, and that's where the rail lines went either from there to Milford or to Providence. Before 1900, before that interlocking tower was there, some guy had to get out there and switch the thing by hand. They said, this is ridiculous. Let's put a switching tower there, and all the guy has to do is pull the lever, and the cables will connect to the switch, and they can make the switch that way. Much better. So this is tower SS 231. It was built in 1900. Now here's a little thing from the Sanborn map. The top arrow shows the switching tower itself. The next arrow shows the line going off to the Rhode Island and Massachusetts Railroad. The third arrow down shows the main line going to Blackstone. And the fourth arrow shows the line going off to Milford. Here's another Google Earth. This line starts at Franklin Junction and goes off to just to the side of the main line to Blackstone. And it traveled all along there. I used to think it went sooner, but no, it ran all the way down there until it made a left turn up towards Washington Street. It went up and crossed over Washington Street, and then went back over Washington Street. So you had two places where it crossed over Washington Street at street level. And then a third place down on the other side of Washington Street. So that was kind of ridiculous. So back in 1899, they did some surveys. They said, why the heck did we do that? Why couldn't we have just continued the line down along the main line and bypass that and then make the turn and go under Washington Street with the school, the churches or whatever. And so they said, gee, they wondered why that wasn't taken under consideration. But apparently, they had been talked about. They decided at the end, we'll just do it. So, but it was expensive to have these grade crossings. But in the end, they did it. So, if you ever go down Washington Street, you come to a little spot where the road levels off. That's where the high tension wires are. That's the spot where the road where it crossed over the first time. Still, you can still stand there and look down the trail, and you can see.
It's all dug up now.
It's all dug up.
Something going in there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all dug up. Kind of bummed me out when I saw it.
Yeah.
They said it's messing with railroad history.
Yeah, no, well, no. What do you? And then the line continues on towards West Wrentham. South Street is on the side along there, and when it crosses into Wrentham, it becomes Ash Street. And then West Street in Wrentham is that road right there. And then the arrow's pointing to where the little train station was in West Wrentham.
There's some parts right as you get near the end of that Ash Street, you can still see the right of way.
Yeah, that's right.
In the winter, in the fall.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can see-
Yeah, oh yeah.
You
That,
can see quite a bit of it.
well, that's why the Google Earth is nice, because the trees kind of haven't grown in. You can follow where it was. Here's the West Wrentham train station. And it's always nice when you can preserve a piece of history. Well, guess what? It's still there some guy had it moved down a couple of miles away, and it's his private shed. So it's kind of cool, huh? Yeah. It's in a private residence. It's right near Diamond Hill. I won't show you exactly where, but anyway, yeah. And then it continues on. This is where it crosses into Cumberland, Rhode Island. If those of you know where the Mercy Mount Country Day School is in Cumberland, across the street there's a big lake. It's called Misco Lake. Well, that's what Misco Lake is right there. And the train went along Misco Lake and crossed over Diamond Hill Road. Now, you can see the road, Route 121, how it kind of goes down like this, takes a bend like that. Well, in the old days, see where the arrow is? That's where the road was. And there's still that little segment of road right there. That's where the road was, and then Diamond Hill Road would go up to that road. But somewhere along the way, they decided to make it a gentler curve, and they did that. And then they blocked it off so that the only way you can get to that little segment is going down. It's called Little Street. So, but anyway, yeah, you can still see where the train was.
But when you come out of Diamond Hill Road to Renton or Delivery Cross, you can still see there's a gas line in there now.
Oh,
You can
yes,
still see where
you're
the
right.
way went.
Plain as day.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a little secret. See that right there on the right? Don't say anything, but that's where that shed is. But you didn't hear that from me. And then there was the Grants Mills train station. That area was called Grants Mills. And then, who's familiar with the ice cream machine in Cumberland? Every Saturday night, my wife and I go. So that's the Diamond Hill Park right there. Going to be a good car show there coming up too. So make sure you go to that.
Saturday.
Oh, missed it.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry. So there's the foot of Diamond Hill. You can see where the train went through there. And it continued on, crossed over Reservoir Road. And then that arrow's pointing to where the train station was there. And there's the Diamond Hill train station. And it crossed over Diamond Hill Reservoir. And you can't,
Some of that stuff's still there.
Oh, yeah.
Beams of it are still in there.
yeah.
Can't walk down.
No, I know. I tried, but there's a fence and it says no trespassing. I said, well, because it's a reservoir. I said,
I went by there about a week ago. There was no water under there.
oh, I know it. Same with North Attleboro, the dry. Oof, ridiculous. And then here it crosses over Nate Whipple Highway. When you're in North Attleboro, you're by the CVS, and that's Route 120. You go down that road, it becomes Hickory Street. And then when you cross into Cumberland, it becomes Nate Whipple Highway. That's what that road is. That's called Arnold Mills. And the street right there is called Quaker Street, and that's where the railroad went at one time. And then that arrow is pointing to where the little train station was in Arnold Mills. And then it continued on, until it went to the Adamsdale section of North Attleboro. So it crossed over the line, and yeah, okay. So, before it gets to North Attleboro, this is the other segment of Quaker Road. That's a private residence today, right here, and that's where the Arnold Mills train station, Abbott's Run train station, I should say. It had a little coal elevator in the back too. Yeah, yeah. And then that diagonal line is North Attleboro, the North Attleboro line. And then there was a small section of North Attleboro called Adamsdale. And in Adamsdale, they had their own train station. It was just down the track a little bit. But the blue line, that's a line that came from North Attleboro Center to this spot. They wanted to make a connection between North Attleboro Center and this one. And so it created a junction right at that spot. It's called Adamsdale Junction, not to be confused with Adamsdale train station. They're two separate ones. And so I've been down there. That's Mendon Road in North Attleboro right there. So, and anybody familiar with Chemawa Country Club? Yeah, well, that's what that is right there. No, yeah. There's the Adamsdale Junction train station.
Nice open up borders.
And then it continues on until it crosses over Depot Street in Adamsdale. And there's the train depot for Adamsdale. And that's what it looks like today. They really preserved that, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful job. Really nice. That's right on Depot Street, just a little bit from where it used to be. Beautiful.
Is that a private home now?
Yeah, it's a private home. I was in the street. I didn't want to go in the guy's yard. So I took it from the street. But when I saw it, I said, that's it. And then it continued on. If you're familiar with 123 in Cumberland, Rhode Island, it crosses over there. And then about a mile or so from Valley Falls was this train station right here, Cumberland Mills. And then the train gets to Valley Falls, Rhode Island. The blue arrow is pointing to the train station for the Providence-Worcester line at the end of Chapel Street. And the red arrow is pointing to the Valley Falls train station. And that street right there is Titus Street, right there. And then that's Titus Street right there where the railroad crossing is. And there's the train station. Those two houses, this is a black and white picture, but today they're painted yellow. We're going to see them, they're still there to this day. And then here's a picture I got a hold of. It's probably 1940s, 1950s, and you can see the two houses. The train station's gone by now, but the Providence, Rhode Island train station's still there right now. And these two tracks right here on the left, you're going to see a building on top of those tracks in a minute. I'll show it to you. Oh, the tracks to the right go to Franklin. But the ones over here, they put a big building on top of them. And there's that building right there. There's no tracks on the other side of the building, but in front, you'll see tracks going in, so it must be using it like an engine house. An engine house, right. Right, are you familiar with that one at all, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then you can see they still left some of the tracks for going to Franklin, but the line in the left there, that's still used for the Providence-Worcester line. Yeah.
It goes up to Worcester, that's the main line.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then here's a picture of, you can see the station's long gone. You can see the two houses still there. You can see the tracks going into the building, Titus Street. So, yeah. Yeah, I went down there, I took some pictures, yeah.
Were they mostly moving freight, or were they carrying passengers?
Probably more freight than anything, Mike? Yeah, probably just freight, yeah. Because I think that train station's long gone. I don't even think it's there anymore. For Providence, Worcester, I think. Yeah, probably not, yeah.
That's all free.
When did those tracks come up? I don't ever remember them on Washington Street.
Yeah, that's a good question. Al, do you know?
In the 40s.
In the 40s, okay, okay, yeah. Yep. Yep. Now, yeah,
Yeah, they probably took it to make tanks and bullets and stuff.
that's right, yeah, for the war effort, you're right, yeah, yeah. Or razor blades. Now, how many times have I walked down the rail trail, and I'm walking along, and I know I'm on high ground, But I look to the left and I look to the right, and I'm saying, wow, there's a field down there, and it's all this dirt. You know, one of two things must have happened. Either the railroad got lucky and found this spot and said, hey, let's put the railroad there. Or they moved the dirt and put the railroad there. So I'm pretty sure they brought the dirt in. But then I started thinking, okay, well, where did they get the dirt? So I never could figure that out. So then, this is Holliston, by the way. Then I saw, we get to here, and I can see this big cut in the ground. You can see the ground is level up top. Where did all that dirt go? Well, I think I just answered my own question. It must have been for the previous one. But in 1842 or 1848 is when they did this. So I'm thinking, wow, that was quite an effort.
Those walls there like that, you got the same things down just by Grove Street.
Right.
And on there.
Right.
That's what beautiful work.
Oh, I know it.
That tunnel there.
Yep.
Man, you go inside to this brick.
Oh, I know. We were just there a couple of weeks ago. That's why I took this picture. Yeah.
They didn't have much for equipment. You
I know. That's what I mean.
But for equipment.
I know it. So, and the other thing about, there was like an informational board just outside this tunnel, and it talked about when they did this. And it said that removing the dirt was a major obstacle because the earth was of a character that was more difficult to remove than rock itself. So they had a heck of a time getting it out of there, but they did. Yep.
I'm sure they didn't do any environmental studies.
Probably not. So then I got this picture, and this picture just answered the whole thing. Look at this. Now, I don't think that trestle was a permanent trestle by any means, but it was a temporary one because these cars would come in and dump the dirt to the side. Look at that, and look at how high that is. So that's what they did. They took the dirt from over here and brought it there. And then look at this picture. Even better. You can see the dirt just piling up and piling up. Imagine that. When I got these pictures, I said, that's how they did it. It's great. Now, I got a story for you. You're going to love this one. This is West Bacon Street in Plainville. And this is that railroad line is the one that went through Rentham Center, around Wampum Corner, and onto Plainville and so on. Well, this is Plainville. That's West Bacon Street. There's still, to this day, there's a building down there. It was an engine house. Yep. And there's where the line was.
There was a sign there until a few years ago
Right.
on Bacon Street about that, but somebody absconded that.
Well, maybe they discouraged people from going in there.
Yeah.
People like us that wanted to see history, yeah.
Yep.
So I've heard where when they were putting this line in, the conditions back up there were very boggy, very muddy. So they bring in the dirt in. They brought in 4 railroad cars like we just saw. Must have been getting late in the day. They said, let's just wait till tomorrow. So let's park the car on this temporary track. We'll disconnect the engine, bring it to the engine house, and the next morning we'll go back and we'll finish the work. So they went back. The cars were gone. They were gone from the face of the earth, literally. They sank into the mud. They were gone. And they're still there to this day. Do you believe it? So needless to say, they, oh, you don't, huh? Well, that's what I heard. So they had to bring in more dirt. But anyway, I thought that was really something. Wow.
The tracks and everything.
Tracks and everything. Boom, right in. Yep.
Well, there is a, it looks like a canal.
Yeah, I'm not sure I think that's high tension wise, but yeah, you can tell, when you look at Google Earth and you look at the whole area, yeah, you can tell that's kind of swampy in there.
10-mile river, but that isn't a big river.
Yeah, right.
Part of 10 Mile River.
It could be.
That side there.
It could be, yeah.
10 Mile River is probably 40 miles long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't that big either.
Yeah.
I come from Newton,
You come from Newton? Yeah.
in California Street, in Watertown Square.
Yeah.
And this here reminds me of all the old steamers.
Oh, yeah.
Coal, you gotta put it in.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they showed the tracks of Watertown Square.
Yeah.
In 1930 or 1940.
Yeah.
And almost the same as this here.
Huh, wow. Pretty good.
Between this here and what I was just thinking of, it's almost the same. Yeah.
Great.
There's New York Central.
Yep. So now the Milford Branch. During the early years of the Boston and Albany Railroad, there was a line that went from in Milford and went down to Woonsocket. And in 1870s, Joseph Gordon Ray and George Draper of Milford decided to get together, and they wanted to put a line connecting that railroad line to Franklin, a little branch line. So after $100,000, they built a line. And that way there, it connected the New Haven line with the Boston and Albany Railroad at that time.
When did you say that was?
That was in the early 1870s. Yep. So they created a junction on that railroad, and we'll see it in a minute. But anyways, where they connected was down by Union Street, down by Nason's Crossing. And the line went off to the right of today's mill store. And it continued on in that way. And then the train took a right turn over Fisher Street and Grove Street and continued on that way. And today's Forge Park train station is there. Continued on over Maple Street in Bellingham and continued on. And in Unionville, right where the bridge, this is old West Central Street, right by where the bridge is, and the train goes under the bridge, there was a little Unionville station, and that was that.
So that was a passenger line at one time.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I only remember it as freight.
Yeah, I think after a while, not too many people used it as passenger, and they said, well, just make it freight. Yeah.
Automobiles killed all that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then, here's where it connected to in Bellingham. So this is Bellingham Junction. And that was, yeah.
Where is that?
Let's see. Well, there's 126 right there. Yeah. Oh, is that what it is? Okay, yeah.
Tracks
Yeah.
go underneath 126 there.
I haven't been down there.
There was another one that went up to go by Pete's Bluebird.
Yeah, right. I remember that one. Yep. Mhm. Yeah.
There actually is farm.
Yes, there was a factory down in the end of Fisher Street where for 1 year,
Yeah.
they took sugar beets to make sugar, but it didn't work out too well, so they moved that whole thing down south. But yeah, that's why they call it Sugar Beet Road. Yeah. Yep, there was a factory right on the end. Yep. Yeah. And then this is the Midland. I mean, this is the station at Bellingham Junction.
Water too. Yeah. When the toll road came through.
Now, back in the day, there was this big tree down on West Central Street, just before you make the turn to go over the bridge. And in 1937, they said, you know something, that tree is really getting all rotted out and everything. We got to cut the thing down. But the thing was a landmark for many years. So I'm going to show you a film from the Stanley Chilson film. What you're going to see them cutting on the tree. Well, what you're also going to see in the background is the railroad tracks. And you're going to see this little maintenance car going down the track. So watch this. Come on. There we go. Ready? Here we go. Boom. Come on. Start cutting. Oop, we'll get it going, don't worry.
My next trick.
Come on, what's going on here? This thing's slow.
Yeah. No power.
Here we go. Okay, watch. Yeah. Now watch the track. You're gonna see the little car go by. There he goes. Yeah. When I saw that, I said, "Wow, that's cool."
Now, is that one of the hand cars?
No, probably motorized. Yeah, it's not like this here. My friend and I used to go down those tracks. We used to walk down those tracks because before you had permission to smoke, so I used to go down.
Maybe about 6, 7 inches for a quick wedge.
And then today, that's the Forge Hill train station, and that arrow's about where the tree used to be. Now here's a film. This is around 1940. 1940 shows the train getting stuck in the mud, in the snow. This is down by near Gorelick's. Isn't that pretty cool or what, huh? Even the engineer got out and helped.
What year is this?
1940. Yeah, we had a big snowstorm that year, the Valentine's Day storm. Yeah, got a whole bunch of people out there shoveling.
No front end loaders, no.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what they did is they backed up the train, and then they disconnected the locomotive and coal car, and then they were able to plow through. And you'll see that. There we go. They disconnected the train temporarily.
Yeah. Get rid of the dragging weight.
Yeah. You got a good head of steam going there.
Literally.
Yeah, right. Now this is where the line crosses Fisher Street. I went down there recently, and of course everything's grown in now. But I thought this was a pretty cool picture. You can see today it's Franklin Landing, but that's the old Ray Woolen Mills. On the right, you see the Haywood Mill, which is today's Franklin Mill Store. So, and in the Franklin Observer, they had an article back in October of 2006. A truck was going over the tracks right at Fisher Street, and unfortunately, the truck got stuck right on the track. And apparently, the engineer must have heard the train whistle coming, so he started running down the tracks, but it was too late because there's a curve there. And the engineer was in the lead passenger car. You know, sometimes they put the locomotive on the end of the train, so the guy, it's like a bud car. The guy's right in the front. So he saw the truck, and he knew he wasn't going to be able to stop in time. So apparently, you can hit the brake, lock it, and get the heck out of the into the passenger area. Instead of warning people, and then hit the truck. But nobody got killed, thankfully.
I was on that commuter rail that morning.
You were there?
Kidding.
You were there? Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it was just,
Wow.
I was a couple cars back.
Yeah. No kidding.
It was a big bang.
Wow. Whew. I never thought I'd have somebody in the audience that was on it. Wow.
It was a low bed, it was a car carrier.
Oh, was it? Oh, was it a path?
I had to say, I worked for Dick DeMasi, and a guy come in a panic.
Yeah.
His truck was stuck there. We went down there with some traffic.
It was his truck.
Yeah, this was in the 70s before Forge Park, but that was still a freight line.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And we helped the guy out, and he was going to Vendetti Motors. I think he had gone to it had cars on it. He
Yeah.
was going to Vendetti Motors, Lincoln Mercury deal.
Wow.
You could have left that trailer there for a week.
Probably. He was in a panic, and we saw it. We didn't even call the cops. We just got up there, we brought about 4
Wow.
jacks and blocks.
Wow. So obviously the trains went to Blackstone on this line, and on to Milford on that line. Now here's some railroad pictures. For the longest time I wondered where this picture was taken. And then it finally dawned on me. Up on the hill where the old piano factory was. This is looking down at the end of Depot Street. And you can see the Sentinel building that was there. The trading post used to be there, and other things. My house was the arrow, where the arrow's pointing you, 30 Dean Avenue. It says, wow, this is my house. Yeah. And then that's what it looks like today. Now this picture puzzled me for quite a while. And I said, well, it's got to be Franklin, but I wonder where it is. And then I saw that building that I'm pointing to. Does anybody have a clue on that, where that house is? Now think about it this way. It's a street, and it's got to be right next to railroad tracks. You got it. That's the house on East Street. So when I went on Google Earth and I saw it, 'cause how many houses are built at a 45-degree angle to the street? So that's what I remember. I says, oh, I wonder if that's East Street. Well, sure enough. So I went down there the other day and took a picture. There it is. They put a new dormer on the back, but other than that, it's basically the same house. Huh. Now, we had a roundhouse in Franklin. It was down at the end of Alpine Place. And that was in October of 1874, Joseph Gordon Ray donated a piece of land for the outhouse? No, the roundhouse. And cut that out, okay? No, leave it in, that's good. My first blooper, wow. The engine house and the round table, So the reason they put this the train table in, apparently there was a couple of trains that did not go to Blackstone. They came from Walpole and they stopped at Franklin and went back. Now, obviously back in those days, you had to turn the engine around somewhere. Franklin didn't have a roundhouse or a turntable. So, you know what they were doing back then? They would back the train up from Walpole to Franklin, and then they'd go back. Well, that was okay during the summer months, but the winter, not too good. So then they said, let's put a roundhouse, and that's what they did. But it was only for 2 trains, apparently, the 7:10 a.m. and the 11:34 a.m. I guess the rest of them went to Blackstone. So, yeah.
My father used to take them down to Blackstone. The last thing they would do in the night was run the locomotive around the
Ah.
trains, have about 7 in the morning.
There you go. Yeah. Huh.
Did they turn them by hand, once you guys would push it to turn?
In those days, yeah.
Yeah, really, yeah. Wow. Huh.
Might have cranks or something, yeah, not by hand.
Yeah, wow. And there's the roundhouse from 1933. Yeah, that house right there that I'm pointing to, that's still there to this day. And there it is. You can barely see it with all the trees growing in, but it's on Milliken Avenue, I think. Here's just a cool picture of the train station. You can see the piano factory up the hill, Railway Express Agency. I used to go in there as a kid, and Frank St. John worked there, and some guy named Steve. I remember I was small at that time. He'd put him up on the counter, and I'd watch them put the labels on the packages and everything. It was really fun. Yeah.
Used to deliver the,
Railroad's the same gauge as Franklin?
or standard gauge United States.
Oh yeah.
Moody Street, they have
Yeah.
all kinds of-
Yeah.
I love it.
6.5 inches.
That became the national.
Yeah, that's standard gauge.
And the rails are all the same?
No, different
No.
size metals.
Ah, I love having an expert here. This is great.
They look like the eye. Some's 85 pounds a yard, some's 130, 150 pounds a yard. Just gets bigger or wider.
Wow.
You go by
Oh, except
Millis.
you know,
Okay.
even though that was down to.
So this picture was taken, I'm not really sure when, but you can see the coal elevator in the background. That was the old Gilmore coal yard. Today there's a municipal parking lot there. But I can remember as a kid, I'd be outside in the summertime, and all of a sudden there's this grinding noise. Guarantee it was the coal going up the chute. Because I remember looking over where the coal cars would be. There was a cement pit, and you could see the doors on the bottom of the train would open up. And I remember looking down in there and thinking, wow, so that's where the coal would all go up. And then there's another picture of it. And today, that's the parking lot.
Did you ever find a picture of the water tower?
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of the water tower. Oh yeah.
Because I know the footings are still there.
Speak of the devil, there it is.
Speaking of the devil,
Yeah, that water tower was built in 1902. It stood 47 feet above the track. It was 24 feet in diameter and stood about 16 feet tall. It had a capacity of 61,500 gallons. Yeah. Oh, and you see that thing there with this thing hanging? Mike, what are those? They're for the trains?
heights.
Yeah,
12 height building.
right. They have them down at the trunk line trail. They recreated it, yeah. Yeah.
There's for
Yeah.
excess height stuff.
Yeah. And some of the footings are still there to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there they are.
We used to get candy at Jimmy's candy store, go
Yeah.
sit on those things.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Watch
we
the trains go by.
what we used to do as kids, we used to drive the poor guys crazy. Franklin Furniture used to have their big boxes there. We'd slide down the hill in the box, and then we'd leave the boxes there and go home, and the guys said, "Oh, you kids, what are you?"
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And then 1935, the Comet came to town. This was a new train, and it was making a tour, and it stopped in Franklin. So we know that's 1935.
The train never went over me.
Yeah, I know, yeah. really.
Diesel, right? Was diesel, early
Was it?
diesel?
Was it? Yeah, I guess it was diesel. Yeah, it would be no electric.
Diesel electric.
No, diesel electric. Yeah. There's another one.
It never lasted, only a couple of years.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing, yeah, pretty ugly.
Now, in July of 1937, a big truck was going over the town bridge with a trailer, and on the trailer was a steam shovel. And the truck made it over, but the trailer didn't. Right through, right down to the tracks. Big mess. Yeah, it's looking at it. Huh?
They don't find out who shovel it was?
You know, I'm not sure if it was Percy Loy or not. I really don't
Oh,
know.
it looks like an L.
Yeah,
L on the side of the,
yeah. I'm not sure.
L, that might be, yeah.
Yeah,
There wasn't too many people in town that had it.
yeah. It might have been Percy Loy. Yeah. But anyway, there it is. That's looking towards the depot.
Well, they weren't going to Blackstone then.
They weren't going anywhere. Now, if you walk along the trunk line trail, you'll see this. It's a cattle crossing, so the cattle can go underneath. And then and as you can see, the ground is up real high.
Where is that?
If you go to Lake Street, you start heading back towards Grove Street, not too far along there, you'll see it, right in there.
Is that still there, Joe?
Oh yeah, that's still there. Yeah, that's why I took this picture myself.
Did that a lot of places. See that down along, like I go that bike trail from Woonsocket to Lincoln with the people.
Right.
Tracks that they still have.
Yeah.
They still have.
This-
This
Yep.
one you can see in that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now here's some Stanley Chilson films.
Never seen that shit before.
Yeah.
Look at this, that gas electric engine. This is 1935.
That's a doodlebug they used to call them.
We gotta sit.
Where we express guy coming out for stuff.
Yep, I remember they used to pull the car right out and let the train pull up and stop. I remember that. Yeah.
They used to bring the newspapers out from Boston too, the Herald and the Globe. Remember Gus Fertitta used to be down there bringing up to the paper store.
Yeah. Now, back in 1935, they had the CCC. That would be the Civilian Conservation Corps, and they had a campment up at Forge Hill. This is a bunch of the guys showing up at the train station, ready to go up there. Yep. You can just see my house on Dean Avenue right there.
Where they coming from?
I'm not sure. Probably Boston, but
That's a
Yeah.
uniform zone.
yeah. Yeah, they definitely came from Boston. Yeah.
They would just come for the day to work and.
Oh, no. They had barracks up there and everything. It was like a little army.
Right.
Oh yeah, they were there for months. They would do work in the forest and everything, and yeah. If you go down to Cape Cod Canal, they had an encampment right there too, because where the rest area is, and they got like an information board there, talks about that. So they had them all over the United States.
Yeah, they built most of the national parks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Joe,
yep,
I heard that the clubhouse at the Rod and Gun Club used to be
that's right.
the
You're
conservation camp.
You're absolutely right.
And I never knew that.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the Rod and Gun Club over in near Uncas Pond, when they dismantled all the barracks and everything, they took some of that wood because there was a lot of it, and they used it to build the clubhouse. Now this is a nice picture. Go down to City Mills, and look at that. It's all grown in now. You can't even see the tracks of the hill, but back in 1935 you could. When I saw that, wow, that is really cool.
It's a nice, I used to love right on that curve as we were in.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's like one of the best places to go
yeah.
on the train, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff my grandfather could have been on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I remember one time I rode the engine in to Boston with a guy named Jim Cochran,
Yeah.
and I was in the Naval Reserve with him. And I knew he was driving the train in, and I remember it was a Mr. Healy,
Yeah.
so maybe it was him. This was 1968, 69.
Well, my grandfather's a conductor.
Oh, okay.
My father was an engineer.
Oh, maybe that was your father then. Yeah, because he was Mr. Healy. I remember that. So yeah. And riding in the engine, boy, that was cool. Wow. Yeah.
You can't beat
I
it.
mean, the noise. Psh, psh, psh. Oh, what a racket. Oof.
When you're a little kid, it's a thrill.
Oh yeah. Here's Nason's Crossing, and you can see the track on the right side. You can see how it just comes off. That's the one that went to Valley Falls.
My father's cousin, Bill Woodward, ran a car, truck like
Yeah.
car like that from Boston.
Oh wow.
Boston and Maine Railroad.
Yep, the B&M. Yep.
Doing that now.
Yeah.
Cover the whole road.
Is there still a lot of unused track in Franklin, or is it
They pulled up quite a bit of it.
mostly pulled up?
Yeah.
Not much left now.
They had double track in there
Yeah.
from Rhode without the Franklin. For
Yeah.
some reason, they stopped working on it,
Yeah.
but double track in
I know that. Yeah. It's all just sitting there. I don't know what happened there.
Just in downtown, they're gonna do it from downtown Franklin to Forge Park, so it'll be single track, but it's 22 trains a day. It's 11 trains, in and 11 trains out.
Really? That many? Wow.
Yeah.
So I thought they cut back with COVID.
They didn't cut back too much.
Here's when they were reconstructing the bridge. Anybody remember Mazzona Taylor? That's where his store was, although there was a shoe shop there at that time.
He You didn't have no equipment then, no cranes, no front end loader?
No, no, no.
Backhoe?
That's right. Yep.
You had to make the concrete by hand.
That's right. Oh, there's the town pool.
Rosie, what the school?
Now, Joe, that coal chute you were talking about by Dean Ave.
Yep.
It would come out the bottom of the car,
Mhm.
and then the conveyor would take it up,
Yep.
and then would they bag it and sell it? Because people were burning coal.
Well, I know what happened. It was up on pedestals, and the truck would drive under, and then they would dump the coal right into the dump truck, and off they would go. And then when they got to your destination, they had in fact, my house had a cellar window, and they would put the chute there, and I remember a house across the street was getting a load of coal, and the racket from the coal going down the chute, and that's how they delivered it.
Been in your cellar.
Yeah,
House
yeah,
still got it.
yeah.
Got the little wooden, sliding door.
That's right.
Remember shoveling coal when I was a little kid at the furnace.
That's right. I always wondered why the cellar floor had a 45-degree angle by the window. Then it dawned on me.
Yeah, I still got a coal bin.
Yeah,
House was built in 27.
yeah. There's Bullock's oil tanks.
Now, when I worked in Boston Sand and Gravel's yard for a while. The sand trucks, sand cars used to come in, and they had a shaker.
Oh,
What a noise it made.
Was that
Shook
Boston
the
Sand and Gravel?
Yeah. And the sand would fall down underneath, I forget where, I don't know where.
My brother worked in it.
You have the shakers and get it off from inside the cars.
Oh, what a wreck. It was noisy as hell.
yeah.
It's like a little salt and that stuff, and it synthesizes the cars with sedge.
That's a primitive way of doing it.
And steam.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing. Turn steam.
Still the best power too.
Yeah.
At that time, do you have any idea where the tracks came from? Did they come out of Pittsburgh or places like that with the big steel mills?
With the rail,
That's good.
they made the rail,
Yeah.
they made it. Whatever found was, in the beginning, the big one in New Haven. The big foundry in New Haven, they made rail. Yeah, they used to make it.
Sure,
It
nothing,
will tell you on the side of the rail, usually.
nothing somewhat local, I mean.
No.
And there's those things hanging again
Now,
for
was
the.
that double tracked all the way to Boston back then?
Well, this is actually looking toward Union Street. But yeah, it was double tracked. I remember when it was double tracked. It's only single now. But yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's looking towards, we're on the bridge looking towards Union Street, so it's pulling into the train depot now. I love those trains, that sharp looking car.
General Motors engineer, like the motor division.
They still have that little spur in the back of Agway?
Well,
They pull them up.
Go to Union Street, there's still a bumper post with the trees growing through it.
Yeah, I was just there the other day, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's not much left of anything there. Now this was when they were making it a single line, as Chilson said. So I got a funny feeling this is 1940. This is when they get rid of the track going up to Washington Street.
And a couple of cars.
And before I start the film, you see this? See that thing right there? I don't know if you can all see it with my. No, I can't see it. Right here, there's a water trough that's there. Apparently, the steam engines had a little thing, and then if they're going along, they could scoop up water as they were going along.
I read about that, I never seen it though.
Yeah. Yep.
And it would prevent them from stopping extra times. And they
Right,
Make
yeah.
the trip a little quicker.
That's right. Yeah.
And there was some ingenuity in those days.
Oh, I know it. Yeah. This is around 1944.
It's an alcohol.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Demonstrator, we're trying them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ended up buying a bunch.
I'd love to know who that guy was. Oh, look at this. Down on, that's the freight house down on Cottage Street.
The big old one is probably around.
Maybe, yeah. Can you imagine doing that all day, though? Oh, my God.
See that picture?
Oh,
My grandfather, I see the big guy.
Where was that?
right on Cottage Street. That's Cottage Street right behind there. Agway's there today. This is back at Agway.
Is that the Agway building right there?
Well, it's not Agway building, but it's the Agway building was to the left of it.
That's the freight house.
Right.
One guy with a shovel.
Here's the Comet pulling in.
Gonna lean on.
That's probably Union.
All I can think of is a big a possum. It looks like a possum, the nose.
I say they didn't last.
Yeah, no, huh?
How people get dressed up back then.
Oh, everybody did, yeah.
Everybody dressed.
Everybody did.
You didn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Greg DeBadges put some pictures online of when they were building DeBadges in Dorico. There's guys with pick and shovel and they had neckties on
So,
And white shirts.
and white shirts.
And pants,
Yeah,
Nice
No
picture.
jerseys.
it's like, oh man,
Jerseys back then?
unbelievable.
Everybody dressed up.
Yep. And men had to wear hats. All men wore hats back then.
No hard hats neither.
No hard hats, right. Now here's an interesting one. In 1951, General Douglas MacArthur came through town on a train, and there was a big announcement about it. There was 2 trains. This is like the lead train, and then the following train was the one he was on.
Those white flags on the front, that means that's an extra.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an extra train.
Okay, and then you can see the 5 stars on the nose, which was 5-star General. And I'm pretty sure, you'll see a guy waving. I'm pretty sure that was him. It kind of goes by kind of quickly, but
Where was he going?
it was just making a tour through. It just happened to go through Franklin. I'll point it out in a second. Right there. That's got to be him. Yeah,
Yeah, it's gotta be.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. But yeah, it was a big
I
thing.
shall return.
Yeah, that's right. He did. Yeah.
Shall return, but not here. Where's my living?
Bud car. But this is one of those kind.
That's the RPO
Oh yeah, with the freight in the middle, front rather.
and the post office.
A post
Yeah,
office.
that's what those are, railway post office cars.
Oh, no
Some
kidding.
of them had the one baggage part on them, and some of them had the 2 doors with the railway post office and baggage.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
What year is this, Joe?
This one is 1953.
year I was born.
Oh, there you go. These are the trains I remember.
Yeah,
I remember that pole there.
Yeah.
some of the alcohol there.
And they're red and black. Yep. Now this one, the engineer is George Sanderson. And George Sanderson used to live right next door to me on Dean Avenue. And he always, anytime he was outside walking downtown, he always had his engineer cap on and suspenders and dressed like a train engineer no matter where he went.
Big overalls.
Yep, there you go, right there. Yep, that's him. I guess his nickname was Cy. Cy Sanderson, yeah. Yeah.
I think my father fired for him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He learned how to run an engine.
Oh, no. The end. How do you like that? Well, pretty good timing. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for coming.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.